Welcome everyone to Polar Night, and wow, what an introduction for this game, huh? I mean, look at this menu screen, to be exact. Interesting. I might say so myself, but hey, welcome, subscribe, like, comment, share to your friends and loved ones. Let's get back to let's get to the game, not get back. We just got here. The wolf couldn't see anything through the blizzard. Beyond the windshield was just a thick flurry of white. But then he didn't have a destination in mind anyway. Just away from there. He had one hand pressed tightly to his abdomen, trying to compress the wound there. The other gripped the steering wheel tightly. The other hand, I guess. A mix of adrenaline and the extreme cold disguised the pain. He was surprised it even managed to get the snow truck running and driving away from that madness. His eyes glanced at the glove compartment. Maybe he could just throw it out into the snow, drive away from this. Seriously? After all of that, you're going to fuck everyone in order to save your own skin? Yeah? Whoa, calm down, everyone. The wolf ignored him. His companion, sitting in the passenger seat, engaging was pointless. His ears pinned back and fangs bared, partly from anger but mostly from the pain in his belly. And yet shame bubbled within him. How could he think of breaking his promise? I'm not surprised, to be fair. It's all you ever do. Again, the wolf did not respond. A flash of agony shot through him, reminding him of his grave wound. He grimaced and cried out, but his cry was followed by an awful sputtering sound. The sputtering continued until the engine fell silent, the vibration of the truck ceasing. The wolf sat there, staring at the dashboard in a mix of bewilderment and accusation, as if he could shame the machine into starting up again. He glanced at the fuel gauge, empty. How? How could he have overlooked it? His departure had been hurried, to say the least. They had not had the luxury of properly preparing. After an awkward pause, the wolf threw a frustrated tantrum, cursing and slamming his fists against the wheel, kicking the footwell and screaming. This isn't helping, you know. The wolf only barely resisted a furious snarl at the other figure, reining in his anger in order to slump forward, head against the wheel and eyes closed. Tears rolled down his muzzle. The journey had lasted maybe 10 minutes at most. They couldn't have traveled more than a couple of kilometers. All of that effort and sacrifice just to fail within walking distance. There's a first aid kit in the back. You look like you need it. The voice snapped him back out of his misery. His eyes flicked open, now aware of just how tired he was, how the steering wheel of this utilitarian truck might as well have been the fluffiest pillow ever. As his awareness flowed back, the stench of iron in the cabin made him gag. He knew the source. He brought his trembling hand up to his face. Though the redness was hard to make out against the black fabric of his glove, the soap glistening told him it was saturated with his blood. Everything felt distant, like he was drunk. And God didn't he know what drunkenness felt like. He reached into the glove box, his trembling hand brushing that cursed thing to grasp the flare he'd been given. Regardless of anything else, he needed to warn them, to tell them he'd failed. Maybe they'd come for him. The wolf reached his trembling, blood-soaked hand to the door and after a brief pause, opened it. He stumbled, man. Hey, man. He stumbled out of the cabin, not bothering to close it after him. Something told him there was no point. Bracing himself against the side, he staggered through the knee-high snow, still keeping pressure on his wound, though now it was more of a token act. He couldn't see more than a foot or so in any direction. Instead, he placed a hand against the truck's side, using it to guide him to the back. Upon reaching the rear doors, he had to pause for a moment. The howl of the blizzard saturated his mind, drowning out his thoughts. He brought the flare up, preparing to activate it. And then, just like that, his weak, trembling hands let it slip from his grasp. The buffeting wind and snow instantly carried it out of his field of vision. Fuck! No! He dropped to his knees, glancing around frantically as he dug at the snow for the flare. Without it, the others would have no way of knowing he needed to be guided back. It's over, he knows. He clawed desperately at the thick snow, feeling his ability to move wane as the cold cut through his jacket and trousers and sucked the warmth from his already weakened body. Gazing at the snow, illuminated by the rear headlights of the truck, he slowed and stopped, breathing heavily as his blood-soaked hands carved red swaths in the snow. Was it swathes? He stared at the crimson streaks, realizing he was never going to find the flare. No! Damn it! He threw back his head and let loose a primal, feral. I'm not gonna read that. I'm gonna butcher that word. Lupine howl. No, it's like lupine, right? Lupine howled rage and despair into the unceasing blizzard. He stared into the inky blackness, only slightly penetrated by the taillights. They didn't stretch more than a few meters into the blizzard. He could probably try to return the way he came, but he couldn't have made the journey back even if he wanted to. He turned, half crawling back toward the rear doors of the truck and the only shelter around. The cold barely registered anymore. He felt like his legs were moving on automatic. He pawed clumsily for the door handles. He missed them several times, his vision feeling oddly blurred. Was it the cold? The snow buffeting his face? Finally, his hands reached the handles and gripped them, yanking them open. The cargo compartment was almost entirely empty. They had not had time to stock it. He turned to gaze back where he'd come from. He scanned for the glowing crimson of the return flare, but there was nothing. They'd agreed to wait for 2 hours before popping flares to guide him back. For too long. Oh wait, far too long, far too late. With Herculean effort, he hauled himself up out of the snow, dragging his body inside the cargo compartment. He turned, reaching for the doors once again and pulling them shut. Just like that, the blizzard dropped from an ear-shattering howl to a dull roar. As the wolf regained his bearings, the pain in his belly made him cry out, bringing tears to his eyes. He scanned the interior, looking for a first aid kit, and saw it on the side wall. His stomach lurched as he felt the wetness of his own blood soaking his entire abdomen. He reached a trembling hand for it, his fingers brushing the surface of the plastic container. But then his legs faltered, not faltered, and he stumbled, his hand grasping for purchase. The kit tore off the wall as it toppled forward into the crates on the floor. The impact knocked any remaining breath out of him and left him paralyzed. His pained cry came out as a strangled gargle. The kit crashed to the floor, spilling its contents everywhere. He lay on his belly, one hand stretched out desperately for a roll of bandages, but he no longer had the strength to move. No. God, please. I don't want to die. Mom, Images of Mom came flooding into his mind, filling him with a yearning and an ache more intense than any wound. He'd have given anything just to see her, to hug her, to tell her, Connor? I need to hear you say the words. The figure spoke up behind him. He couldn't see him, but he could hear the bitterness, the mocking tone. I need to hear you say it, Connor. What you should have said to me and Mom before you abandoned us. Connor finally sagged. His limbs were numb and his vision was fading. Connor, say it. His vision went dark, closing in. What little strength he had left abandoned him as he receded, his consciousness a flickering light in the encroaching dark. I'm sorry. Garret. Ooh, what happened? Who is this Garret fellow? His brother? Lover? I don't know. Maybe brother? I'm leaning into that because name Garret. Connor and Garret. Oh, here we are. Not in the blizzarding, not in the blizzard the snow. Clutching the 3 packs of cigarettes, I ambled over to the counter while the bored-looking bull cashier watched me. That all Deville? I gave him a blank look. I didn't speak Norwegian. He rolled his eyes, likely dealing with non-speakers on a frequent basis. Will that be all? He enunciated clearly like I was deaf. Stifling the urge to tell him to stick his attitude, I gave him a nod. He told me the cost, my ear twitched. Much cheaper than Britain. Always British. I was tempted to grab another couple packs. And also maybe to fuck with him a bit, but I decided against it. I didn't want him to take the piss, no. I wanted to have him kick me out, smokeless. I pulled a wad of Norwegian kroner out of my pocket, rifling through them before separating out a few crisp notes and placing them before the cashier. Cheers, pal. I gave him a brief smile and nod, but he didn't return it, simply handed me my change. I slipped them into my pocket before turning awkwardly, my large backpack making it hard to maneuver through the slightly cramped store. I turned carefully to avoid sweeping the tightly packed shelves and marched through the door. I pulled my open pack of smokes from my pocket, fumbling for my lighter in the other pocket. A prized possession. Even before I started smoking, this is the only thing I have of my granddad, an Ellison Sports Elite. Using my lips, I pull a smoke from the pack, stuffing it back in my pocket as I bring up my lighter, shielding it using my other hand from the frigid wind. Immediately it caught. The tip of my smoke started to glow and I inhaled. The welcome, calming rush of nicotine flooded into me. After full breath, I flicked the lighter close, tilted my head back, and after a moment, exhaled. The smoke mixed with the sub-zero wind and turned into a billowing cloud, hot breath and fumes mixing with the frigid air. At this time of year, Long Year Ben could be pretty much summarized as dark and cold. As my boots crunched in the snow, I realized that for all we Scots, god damn it. You're fucking kidding me, mate. You're Scottish? I don't believe you. No, you gotta be from Ireland. You got that, I don't know, that aura, that whiskey, that smell, that huskiness of drinking that cool ale beer. I fucked up. My voice is like, it's a jumping accent, okay? I realized that for all we Scots like to whinge about the weather, this place was truly something else. Nah, that's not Scots. It's not Scottish. I'm sorry. And yet I had to admit, sullen cashier notwithstanding, I liked it. I liked the cold, the snow, the quiet. Only a couple thousand people lived here, and yet it didn't come across as a ghost town. Just peaceful. Not like Glasgow, sorry. I was fond of my hometown, but it could also be a madhouse at all times of the day. It was the only place I knew that had a McDonald's that needed bouncers because of the nutters who came out at night. I shoved my hands in my pockets and kept the smoke set between my lips, throwing on it occasionally. Wait, that's more like Irish, man. I'm messing this shit up. The meeting spot was just up the road, maybe a 10-minute walk. For all the thick, warm gear, I was still feeling the chill. Longyearbyen, the largest settlement on Svalbard, a Norwegian archipelago near the Arctic, the northernmost settlement on Earth. Yikes. Well, that'll be freezing fucking cold, that's for sure. On the other side of the road, walking further into town, were a pair of men who had rifles slung about their shoulders. A pretty crazy feature of Svalbard is that residents are required to have firearms if they leave the settlement in the wilderness for protection from polar bears. Although they can't carry loaded firearms within the settlement itself, it was still odd to me to see guns being carried in the open. They glanced over at me and I averted my gaze. I heard mumbling followed by a harsh laugh. I probably looked like a tourist or something. I tugged my dark fringe down a little. Fortunately, my left eye was on the opposite side to them. By the time I arrived outside the cafe, my smoke was almost finished. I glanced inside the window, trying to see if anyone was there. It was deserted, apart from a solitary figure. A possum guy sitting at a table with a cup in front of him. He seemed to be absorbed in the book. No idea if he was a local or not, but given this is where we were supposed to meet, I figured it was a good bet he was here for the same reason I was. I guess it was good. It was just the one guy. If I'd stumbled upon a whole group, I might have lost my nerve at so many new faces. Cracked my neck. With a final draw on my smoke, I stubbed it out on a bin, then pushed the door open. Well, this is a bit cozy. A bit more of a brownish color hue decor inside it. Like, is this brick? Could be a